Hello and namaskara to everyone. This is again Darshan back with another video. Uh, I would like to call it an interesting video, and I leave it to you folks to decide whether it's really interesting or not. Now, I think we've talked enough about some of the electronic goods in the COVID era, and I thought, why not do a video on my mobile. So what's so special about my mobile, you might ask? Now this is just a typical Moto G5s Plus phone. What? That's an old phone is what you might think. Yes, it's a 5.5-year-old phone. You know what? It's not easy to find a phone which is functional even after 5.5 years of phone, that to an Android phone. You must have heard an Apple phone surviving to a certain extent with a great performance stability. This is the Moto G5s Plus, which still functions very well. It is my primary phone, and yes, I do have plans to change it now, but I think it's still serving me pretty well. And I must say, you might ask for the proof. This is the mail that you're seeing, which I got the first month, okay, on the first month of me buying the mobile, saying that it wanted to know the feedback. You can see, okay, let me tell us about your first month with your new Moto G5s Plus. Now if you see the date, it's clearly saying it's 16/2/2018. Now it is 23 May, so it's gonna complete 5.5 years in the next month or so. So that's with respect to people who might ask for proof. Now the next question that might come to you folks is, how did you even manage with this phone? It's a mediocre phone. It's got average specs for 5.5 years. Yes, it's not just being used for seeing WhatsApp messages or SMS. It has my Google Pay, it does all my payments, it has my official Outlook and Teams. It works absolutely fine. It helps me. The Microsoft Authenticator is there, most of my finance apps is there, and it does almost all the things. In fact, I had been to UK for a couple of weeks. It was able to play around with all the network switches with another SIM put on, and it was absolutely fantastically working in the last I think the last 2 weeks I was there, and it was absolutely fine, except for the fact that it was a bit slow. Now the question that comes up is, how do we even ensure that whatever phone you have can survive for 5.5 years? What I did, I can talk about. Then we can see whether it's possible to. I'll also probably talk about a few tips on how to go about selecting a mobile and how to avoid certain areas. What I did, okay, the mobile, as you know, is a stock Android mobile. Motos are known for giving stock Androids, so they do not have any layers of or wrapper of code written on top of the Android. Yes, they have one Moto layer which gives some beautiful extra additional features, like cool features, I must say, because there are features like you don't have to use any of the buttons to lock or unlock, and there are quite a few other functionalities that you can manage with just the fingerprint scanner. So fingerprint scanner. So that's the beauty of this phone. It's just a 4 GB RAM and a Snapdragon 695 processor. Very mediocre specs, but it has survived well. What extra did I do? Now I have taken care of the phone physically. I've had a good wrapper that makes sense. So it must have fallen maybe 10 plus times. Still, I've had no problems with the screens. Of course, the screen cover has gone. I've changed the back cover a couple of times, but I've ensured that the good quality back cover is always there on my mobile. That helps protecting all the physical buttons, because you know, any phone after 2 or 3 years of survival doesn't get any kind of support. Be it any phone, you would not find the button strip or the volume strip or even the camera cracks. It doesn't it's just not available. The spare parts are not available because of the very fact that the trend changes every 2 to 3 years, and it's not easy to keep up with the spares and stuff like that, though you have a beautiful service center and stuff like that. In fact, my wife had a OnePlus and she had some problem with the network switch at a network stack layer level. They just did a cleanup of the phone, and that's the best they could do, and we eventually had to change the phone because the network was not toggling properly and it was dropping. The network connections were dropping, and they had no solution for that because it was out of service. And that was, mind you, OnePlus 6 I'm talking about, and it's pretty recent even compared to my phone. This has had no problems of such sort. It's been absolutely fine. What else I have done? I've selected the right phone, the stock Android phone with decent specs. Okay, Snapdragon is a processor to watch out for. There are other processors in the world, like in the mobile world, like the MediaTek and couple of couple of other processors. iPhone has its own processor. Samsung has its own Exynos processor. iPhone processor is something different. Google now has come up with their own processor, which is in collaboration with Samsung, where they've used the Exynos chip and they have added some kind of AI on top of it. That's a good set. But Snapdragon is something, Qualcomm Snapdragon is something that I've vouched for a long time because it's stable. Qualcomm does a decent job in ensuring the quality of the product for over a long time. That's another thing. Be careful when you're selecting the processor behind you should know what processor, what make is your phone. Just don't blindly go pick up something based on someone who says the feature is good or something like that. You need to be aware of what's there in the phone. Then comes Samsung is very good. I'm not saying it's bad, but it also has the bad habit of putting out some bloatwares on top of it. That kind of brings down the performance. Yes, they have a 1.1 UI 5.1, which they say is pretty good compared to the previous ones. Maybe you can give that a try. But there are quite a few bloatwares which could drain the battery. Okay, another point that you need to know is battery is an essential component, because apart from the other spare parts, battery is something that can keep draining and it might make you feel frustrated and you might change. What have I done to take care of that? I have ensured that I do a factory reset every now and then. I don't have battery draining apps. The Android is intelligent enough to tell me that these are the battery draining apps. I ensure that I play around with that by probably cleaning up the cache and keeping it up to date. And yes, there has been no security updates or any other update on the phone, but still I've managed because of the fact that I do factory resets and I have an eye on what applications are running. I ensure that there are good updates that are, good apps that I'm using. I don't go with the bloatwares. Then, okay, the points to consider are you need to select the right phone from the beginning. So ensure that everything starts with the right phone for you. If you buy probably a Chinese handset with a MediaTek processor, the quality of the checks that are done on that phone might be less. It might not serve you longer. That's my take. Probably I might be wrong. You could always decide for yourself. So the companies would be like a Samsung would be decent. It's got a decent manufacturing quality, I would say. And Apple is good if you can afford it. And Moto is decent, though there are problems with the serviceability and stuff like that. But as a handset, it's pretty decent. And I think Google is also pretty good. They're doing very well for themselves. But the current chipset, G1 was a bit had some heating issues. Tensor G1, the Tensor G2 that's come in the Google Pixel 7 and 7 Pro and 7a is pretty good, I must say. But yes, you might want to think on the price aspect and then take a call. You need to, before you take other phone, you might want to think on what's the processor. It's very easy to find. You can go and search for the specs and then you'll figure out whether it's a Snapdragon processor, Qualcomm, whether it's an Intel processor, whether it's a MediaTek processor, or if it's Apple, they don't go with any other processor. It's only the M1 or M2 processor that they have. It's their own chip. It's pretty good, I must say. Google, they have their own processor with Exynos from Samsung. Samsung also nowadays are giving a mix. You should be careful because there are some phones, some models with both Exynos chip and a Snapdragon chip. So you might want to check on that and then decide. Then yes, you might want to be aware of the bloatwares that are there. You might want to clean that off or ensure that you have the minimum interference from the wrappers that are written on the Android. Only Android allows writing a wrapper because all others, it's all belonging to the separate their own companies. Android is the only one that's in a way used across various chipsets. Various manufacturers consume the Android as an OS. Then you might want to be aware of what applications you're installing. You might want to be aware of the health of your applications, of your battery, sorry. You might want to keep an eye on how you charge and allow the battery to get discharged. Battery also has a recharge cycle, 1,000 or a 2,000 or a 3,000 number of cycles that you can charge. Don't overcharge, don't charge in the night. That makes battery lose its life. Ensure that when it reaches 80, 90, cut it off. Don't have to reach 100%, and don't allow it to get into a zero SOC, state of charge. Ensure when it is around 15, 20, you start charging, and then you bring it back to 80. 20 to 80% range is pretty good for a battery. And don't have battery draining apps. That makes it basically it makes it work at an optimum, using all the optimum hardware, which kind of brings down the efficiency. So do not allow the mobile to get overheated because of overcharging or probably playing a lot of games. You can play games, nothing wrong in that, but be a bit aware of how you're where you're not abusing the overall performance of a given hardware that is there behind. Then I think keep a good cover, which helps you physically protect the mobile, because once it gets 2 to 3 years old, you don't have an option to otherwise. I mean, if there is a problem with the volume headset or microphone or the buttons, there is a problem. You won't get the spare. It's not easy. If you're lucky, you might find one, a spare. Then you might want to ensure that you keep an eye on your space utilization, because that could cause a problem with the performance, and you might not know the reason, and you might be frustrated and get rid of it. Keep an eye on that, and then clean it up. Don't hesitate from doing a factory reset. That helps a lot. So that it also helps you in understanding what space utilize. Some people have the habit of using all their data, keeping all their information in the phone, and then there's a fear of losing that. Do not get that. Bite the bullet. Ensure that you've taken the necessary backups and then do a factory reset. That will give your mobile the necessary life that you want to pull. That's how I've done with my mediocre phone, and it's still surviving for after 5.5 years roughly. That's it, guys. That's what I had. Sorry, I wanted to make it a much shorter video, but I think these points have helped a lot. Let me try to do another video, come up with an interesting topic, and let me talk to you guys. Thanks. Till then, sayonara. Till then, bye bye. Namaskara elrigu. Then Jai Hind, Jai Karnataka.